In the mid-14th century, a deadly plague ravaged Europe, wiping out millions. But amidst this horror, some communities mysteriously escaped unscathed. How did entire regions survive the Black Plague's wrath? What secrets did they hold? For over 700 years, this question has baffled historians. Today, we'll uncover the secrets that kept these areas alive, while the rest of the world fell into chaos. Imagine this. You're a young dockhand working along the shores in Messina, Sicily. The year is 1347. Another fine ship is heading into the dock, and knowing there is money to be made unloading goods of silks, spices, and other valuables, you head over to the dock to be ready to work. As you and your fellow workers begin to board the vessel, you stop, shocked to the sight of piles of dead sailors lying around the decks. The smell of corpses rotting overcomes you and your mates. The few remaining sailors are also gravely ill. One sailor is slowly approaching you. It must be of the undead. You stand there in shock, staring wildly all around you while covering your face with your shirt. The man is getting closer, and there is blood oozing from his ears, nose, and eyes. Huge, black-colored boils cover his skin. You turn and run off the ship with your fellow workers. Terrified, the ship is forced to leave, and no one is permitted to stay. But it is too late. While docked, rats escaped from the boat. These rats spread the disease through flea infestations. Infected fleas bite animals and humans. Once in contact with another, the bacteria spread like wildfire. Meanwhile, other ships dock in Florence just a port away. One of the darkest nightmares in human history began once the Black Plague touched the shore. Agnolo di Turo, a chronicler, wrote of the devastation around him. The loss in Florence was significant. Early in the pandemic, it became known as the Plague of Florence. Bodies filled the streets, and the dead lay piled at the steps of every church. 3 out of 5 residents died. In Turo's own words, "And I, Agnolo di Turo, carried with my own hands my 5 little sons to the pit. And what I did, many others did likewise." All in all, over 100,000 Florence residents died. By today's estimates, the Black Plague killed close to 50 million people. Although unknown to science, the deadly illness was caused by a bacterium carried by fleas, known as Yersinia pestis. According to Giovanni Boccaccio's writings, because people did not understand the actual cause, they attributed the deaths to God's wrath and begged God for forgiveness. Once you caught the disease, the death was quick. It often killed you within days of first developing the high fever. Large groups, including Jews, were blamed and turned on. Many tried to flee. Boccaccio commented that the evil of the plague continued to reach out after their death. Touching the clothes of the sick or anything touched or used by them seemed to communicate this very disease further. The Black Plague showed no mercy, as it took over every European home, village, and country. The disease did not distinguish between man, woman, or child. It impacted animals, dogs, and cats. It spread quickly, devastating Europe. But there is one thing epidemiologists have questioned now for nearly 700 years. Why were some areas spared? Whole villages were spared the consequential death toll. What made these people special? Was it something they'd done that helped divert the worst? Possibly. First, let's answer the question, what areas of Europe were spared? Scientists today believe there may have been over 30 areas with much higher percentages of the population that escaped this deadly disease. Some of these areas include Poland, Milan in Italy, parts of Belgium and the Netherlands, Pyrenees and border regions of France and Spain, Finland, northern Germany, Aegean in England. What could have set these areas apart? Poland was a kingdom landlocked by countries experiencing heavy death tolls. During the plague, Casimir III the Great, the King of Poland, determined that no person should enter the kingdom from outside the country's borders. While there were a few cases, the addition of hand-washing practices, which came from their local Jewish communities, allowed Poland to be spared. Poland was also known for its love of cats, which may have limited the number of rat infestations. A German village, Oberammergau, began a prayer vigil when the plague entered their area. The residents prayed for forgiveness and begged God to spare their town. They promised to continue spreading God's word to all who survived. Desperation fed their prayers as they bargained to stay safe. They promised to put on the Passion Play, which tells the story of Christ, every 10 years forever going forward. Of course, the community believes God had mercy on them, for much of the village was spared. They have kept their promise of putting on the play every 10 years since around 1633. As the plague spread across Europe, Britain's residents were terrified. The tales of death and devastation reached England long before the Black Death reached its shores. Among the many terrified towns was 𝐬𝐮, a small village that would soon make a remarkable decision. As the first signs of the disease appeared, 𝐬𝐮 did something unprecedented at the time. They sealed themselves off from the world for 14 months. This act of self-sacrifice and isolation birthed our modern concept of quarantine. The villagers knew the horrors of the plague and chose to face unimaginable hardships to stop its spread. It was the town vicar who proposed this drastic measure. 𝐬𝐮's residents, driven by fear and hope, agreed to a voluntary quarantine. They used large flat stones to mark the village boundaries, ensuring no one entered or left. Food was left at these stone markers by outsiders. After 14 months of isolation, visitors entered 𝐬𝐮, expecting to find a ghost town. Instead, they discovered that out of 344 villagers, 90 had survived. This 26% survival rate has since become a crucial point of study for scientists and historians, offering insights into how some people managed to withstand one of history's deadliest pandemics. So, what mystery allowed some individuals and villages to survive? What darkness remains and still lurks today from the Black Plague? Epidemiologists have been studying direct descendants of survivors, like Margaret Blackwell of 𝐬𝐮. Rumour had it that Margaret had caught the plague and was near death. In a fit of thirst, she struggled from her sickbed to drink a jug of boiling fat she had mistaken for milk. Rumours were the fact that saved her, but science later proved that Blackwell had a specific gene mutation. So what was that gene mutation that saved Margaret and so many other communities? Nearly 700 years later, scientists found a secret gene mutation that only occurred in the population of survivors. It's called 𝐸RAP2, and it increased a person's survival from the plague by 40%. Scientists have discovered that this gene mutation is now highly prevalent in our modern population. While it offers protection against the plague, it also has a dark side. The same mutation is linked to autoimmune diseases, including Crohn's disease. The very gene that protected our ancestors may now be causing new health issues. The Black Death's legacy lingers in surprising ways. Nursery rhymes like "Ring Around the Rosies" are remnants of the plague when people filled their pockets and carried flowers to ward off the scent of death. And the disease itself is not a relic of the past. Cases still emerge today, including in the United States. You, yes, even you, could catch the Black Death. While most of today's cases occur in Peru and Madagascar, the disease can appear anywhere. The United States has approximately 7 cases per year. A resident of New Mexico died of the plague on March 8, 2024. California announced in 2020 that they were treating a patient with the plague. He survived. Today, if treated early, the disease is treatable. However, it is still very fatal, as was seen in 2015 when 2 individuals died from the disease. The plague has killed more than 200 million people in its history. Today, the World Health Organization reports finding 1,000 to 3,000 cases annually. There is an average of over 580 deaths per year. So the threat of Black Death is far from gone. While we do have medicines to treat the plague today, you must be able to access treatment in the initial stages of the disease. Although our modern society has access to antibiotics, if you live somewhere remote, or if there is a shortage, your survival will depend on your genes. So, what does this mean for us today? As new diseases emerge, the lessons from those who lived through one of history's deadliest pandemics become our guide. Their genes, their actions, their sheer will to survive, they all could one day save us. The Black Death isn't just a chapter in a history book, it's a haunting reminder that the past has much to teach us about navigating the threats of the future. Stay curious, stay vigilant, and always remember, the answers to our survival might just lie buried in the annals of history.